What if I told you that while most Australians are crammed into coastal cities, stuck in traffic, paying absurd rent for apartments, where you can hear your neighbor's entire life story through paper-thin walls, there are people living in towns so remote that their nearest neighbor might be 50 kilometers away, and they wouldn't trade it for anything. Sounds insane, doesn't it? Like some kind of masochistic lifestyle choice made by people who hate convenience and love dust storms. Well, mate, I'm Mr. Austral, and these people exist. Real humans who've chosen isolation over Instagram-worthy brunch spots, silence over Spotify playlists, and community over crowds. And when you hear their reasons, you might just question every decision that led you to living where you are right now. Support the channel, or keep complaining about your commute while someone in the middle of nowhere is watching stars you forgot existed. Just joking, subscribe. Number 15, Birdsville, Queensland, where 115 people prove population has an equal purpose. We're starting with Birdsville, a town sitting on the edge of the Simpson Desert, 1,590 kilometers west of Brisbane. The population, 115 people. That's not a town, that's a large family reunion that never ended. Birdsville exists in a place where summer temperatures hit 50 degrees. Water is scarce and the landscape looks like Mars decided to franchise in Australia. So why do people stay? Simple, community that actually means something. In Birdsville, everyone knows everyone, not in that creepy surveillance way, but in that genuine, we look after each other because we have to way. When someone's sick, the town rallies. When there's a crisis, people show up. No questions asked, no performative social media posts about thoughts and prayers. Just actual human beings helping other actual human beings. Then there's the famous Birdsville Races, an event that brings 10,000 people to this tiny town every September. For one weekend, this remote outpost becomes Australia's wildest party, and the locals love it. They've built something special here, something that can't be replicated in suburbs where your neighbors don't even make eye contact. Employment is limited, tourism, pastoral work, and small businesses catering to the adventurous travelers who make it this far. But the people here aren't chasing career ladders. They're chasing quality of life measured in sunsets, not salary packages. And once you've experienced silence so complete, you can hear your own heartbeat, traffic noise feels like violence. Number 14, Coober Pedy, South Australia, underground living that makes perfect sense. Coober Pedy is 850 kilometers north of Adelaide, and it's famous for two things, opals and the fact that half the town lives underground. Yes, underground, in dugouts, carved into hillsides, because when surface temperatures regularly exceed 45 degrees, living above ground is for tourists and people who hate comfort. The population hovers around 1,700, and it's one of the most multicultural remote towns in Australia. Over 45 nationalities represented, drawn here by opal mining and the opportunity to carve out a life, literally, in one of the harshest environments on the planet. Why do they stay? The opal mines still produce. The underground homes are naturally climate controlled, meaning no electricity bills that make you question capitalism. And there's something deeply satisfying about living in a place that's so uniquely weird that visitors can't comprehend it. Coober Pedy residents have built underground churches, underground hotels, and underground shops. They've taken hostile geography and turned it into advantage. The community is resilient, self-sufficient, and proud. These aren't people who complain about minor inconveniences. They've adapted to extreme conditions and built meaningful lives doing it. Plus, where else can you legitimately say you live in a cave and have people respond with that as actually really smart? Number 13. Ivanhoe, New South Wales, the town that refused to die. Ivanhoe sits in far western New South Wales with a population of around 250 people. It's agricultural, isolated, and has watched countless country towns around it shrink into ghost towns, but Ivanhoe hasn't given up. The community has fought to keep their school open, maintain services, and preserve their way of life against economic forces that favor centralization. Why do residents stay? Stubbornness, Partly. But also genuine love for the land and lifestyle. These are farming families with generational ties to the region. Their grandparents settled here, their parents worked this land, and they're determined their children will have the option to do the same. The town has basic services, a pub, a school, a general store, and a community that actively works together to solve problems. When the school was threatened with closure, parents and residents campaigned, fundraised, and fought bureaucratic battles. They won. That kind of collective effort builds bonds that cities can't replicate. Life is hard here. Droughts are brutal, markets are unpredictable, and isolation is real. But the people who stay value space, autonomy, and the ability to raise children in an environment where they can roam freely, where neighbors are trusted friends, and where life isn't measured by accumulation but by contribution. Number 12, Boulia, Queensland. Outback hub with unexpected amenities. Boulia is 1,670 kilometers northwest of Brisbane with around 300 residents. It's known as the capital of the Channel Country, a region of sprawling cattle stations and landscapes that look like abstract paintings. Boulia is remote, searingly hot, and shouldn't logically be anyone's first choice for comfortable living, but it works. The town has a surprisingly well-equipped hospital, a school, sporting facilities, and a vibrant community that hosts the annual Boulia Camel Races, an event that draws crowds and revenue. The Min Min Light, an unexplained phenomenon seen in the area, has become a quirky tourist attraction that brings curious travelers. Residents stay because Boulia offers something rare. Frontier spirit with modern infrastructure, you get the isolation and peace of remote living without sacrificing essential services. Families here raise kids in safety, with space to explore, and with educational opportunities that prioritize practical skills alongside academics. Employment revolves around cattle stations, mining support, tourism, and government services. It's not diverse, but it's stable. And for people who value community cohesion over career variety, Boulia delivers exactly what they're looking for. Subscribe to show that these videos actually help and make sense. Number 11. Murray, South Australia, where the Outback meets history. Murray sits at the crossroads of the Unadilla and Birdsville tracks with a population of around 60 people. 60, that's not a town, that's a dinner party that got permanent. Murray was once a major rail hub in the late 1800s, servicing the Old Gone railway line. Now, it's a quiet outpost catering to adventurous four-wheel drivers and tourists exploring the surrounding desert. Why do people live here? Because Murray represents freedom in its purest form. There's no one telling you how to live, no council regulations dictating fence colors, no neighbors complaining about noise. You're responsible for yourself, and that level of autonomy is intoxicating for people tired of bureaucratic interference. The landscape is harsh but stunning, red earth, endless horizons, and skies so clear that stargazing feels like a spiritual experience. The community is tiny but genuine, everyone contributes. The pub serves as social hub, post office, and community center all in one. Employment is minimal, mostly tourism-related businesses and pastoral work, but residents here aren't measuring success in traditional terms. They're measuring it in freedom, peace, and the ability to live life entirely on their own terms without compromise. Number 10. Tibooburra, New South Wales. The hottest town with the warmest people. Tibooburra is in the far northwest corner of New South Wales, 330 kilometers from Broken Hill, which itself is in the middle of nowhere. Population around 150 people. It's one of the hottest towns in Australia, regularly recording temperatures above 45 degrees, and it looks like the set of a post-apocalyptic movie, where civilization gave up, but the people here haven't given up. They stay because Tibooburra offers raw, unfiltered Australian outback life. The two historic pubs, the Family Hotel and the Granites, are social institutions where locals gather, stories are shared, and friendships are forged over beers that taste better when you've earned them by surviving the heat. The surrounding Sturt National Park offers dramatic landscapes, indigenous rock art, and wildlife that exists nowhere else. For nature lovers, photographers, and people seeking connection with ancient land, Taibubara is paradise disguised as punishment. The community is small, tight-knit, and welcoming to newcomers who demonstrate genuine interest and respect. These aren't people performing Outback life for Instagram. They're living it authentically, with all the hardships and rewards that come with choosing isolation over convenience. Number 9. Isisford, Queensland. Agricultural heart with unshakable spirit. Isisford is in central western Queensland with around 260 residents. It's an agricultural town surrounded by sheep and cattle stations, and it's faced everything regional Australia throws at small towns: droughts, economic downturns, and population decline. But Isisford endures. Why? Because the people here are deeply connected to the land and to each other. Farming families with generational ties refuse to abandon what their ancestors built. The town has maintained essential services, a school, medical facilities, and recreational amenities through sheer collective willpower. Isisford hosts the annual Isisford Sheep and Wool Show, an event that brings the community together and attracts visitors from surrounding regions. It's not just about sheep, it's about celebrating rural life and reaffirming community identity. Residents stay because life here, while challenging, offers rewards cities can't provide. Space for children to grow up safely, connection to land and seasons, and a community where everyone contributes and everyone matters. When your neighbor needs help with mustering, you show up. When someone's struggling, the community rallies. That's not romanticized rural mythology, that's daily reality. Number 8. Unadada, South Australia. Surviving where most people couldn't. Unadada is 1,100 kilometers north of Adelaide with a population of around 200 people. It holds the record for Australia's highest recorded temperature, 50.7 degrees Celsius in 1960. That's not weather, that's attempted murder by climate. Yet people live here, thrive here, and refuse to leave. The town sits on the Unadada Track, a legendary outback route that attracts adventurous travelers. The local pub, the Pink Roadhouse, serves as fuel station, accommodation, food outlet, and community hub. It's painted bright pink, visible from kilometers away, and represents the kind of quirky resilience that defines remote Australian towns. Why do people stay? Aboriginal community connections run deep here. For Indigenous residents, this is ancestral land with cultural significance that transcends comfort or convenience. For non-Indigenous residents, Unadada offers a lifestyle free from urban pretense, where survival skills matter more than social media followers. The landscape is unforgiving, red dirt, sparse vegetation, and heat that makes you question consciousness. But it's also beautiful in that harsh, honest way that makes you feel genuinely alive. Residents here have made peace with difficulty. They've chosen meaningful hardship over meaningless ease. Number 7. Wyndham, Western Australia. Tropical North isolation with purpose. Wyndham is in the far north of Western Australia, 3,200 kilometers from Perth, sitting in the tropical Kimberley region. Population around 800 people. It's oppressively hot, dangerously humid during the wet season, and the crocodiles are very real and very large. So why stay? The landscape is breathtaking. Ancient boab trees, dramatic tidal ranges, and sunsets that justify every mosquito bite. The community is resilient, multicultural, and genuinely supportive. Indigenous, European, and Asian heritage blend here, creating cultural richness that coastal cities claim to value but often fail to achieve. Employment opportunities exist in port operations, government services, and tourism. The town has essential services, schools, medical facilities, and enough infrastructure to support family life. It's not easy, but it's honest. People here work hard, support each other, and build lives around genuine relationships rather than transactional interactions. Wyndham residents stay because they've found something rare: purpose in place. They're not just occupying space, they're part of a community that needs them, values them, and couldn't function without them. Number 6. Lee Creek, South Australia. Mining town turned community. Experiment. Lee Creek was a coal mining town 550 kilometers north of Adelaide. When the mine closed in 2016, most expected the town to die. Instead, something remarkable happened. Residents refused to leave. They've been working to transform Lee Creek into a sustainable regional center focused on renewable energy, tourism, and innovative agriculture. Why stay when the economic foundation disappeared? Because community isn't just about employment. It's about relationships, shared history, and collective identity. The remaining residents, around 200 people, have invested too much emotionally and practically to abandon what they've built. They're experimenting with solar farms, ecotourism ventures, and partnerships with research institutions exploring sustainable living in harsh environments. It's not guaranteed to succeed, but the attempt itself demonstrates something profound about human resilience and attachment to place. The landscape is stark but beautiful. Flinders Ranges nearby offer spectacular hiking, photography, and connection with ancient land. Residents here are pioneers in a different sense, proving that towns don't have to die just because traditional industries collapse. Number 5. Inaminka, South Australia, where 15 people guard history and solitude. Inaminka sits in South Australia's Channel Country with a permanent population of around 15 people. 15, that's not a town, that's a family with excellent boundaries. It's famous as the location where explorers Burke and Wills died in 1861, and it sits on the Cooper Creek, which floods irregularly but spectacularly. Why would anyone live here? The pub owner, the handful of pastoral workers, and the caretakers of this remote outpost stay because Inaminka represents something increasingly rare, genuine solitude without loneliness. The landscape is vast, peaceful, and humbling. The Cooper Creek, when it flows, transforms the desert into temporary wetland, attracting birdlife and creating ephemeral beauty. Tourism brings visitors, mostly adventurous four-wheel drivers exploring the Outback. The pub serves cold beer and hot meals, and it's the only commercial establishment for hundreds of kilometers. The social interactions are brief but meaningful. Everyone who makes it to Inaminka has earned it through long, dusty drives, and there's camaraderie in shared endurance. Residents stay because they've found peace in isolation. No noise, no crowds, no expectations beyond basic human decency. For people exhausted by urban intensity, Inaminka offers sanctuary. Number 4. Juntjunjara, Western Australia, remote Aboriginal community preserving culture. Juntjunjara is one of Australia's most remote Aboriginal communities, 680 kilometers northeast of Kalgoorlie in the Great Victoria Desert. Population fluctuates around 150 people. Access requires permits, and the community maintains strong control over who enters and why. Why do residents stay? This is their ancestral land. Cultural connections here run thousands of years deep. Leaving would mean abandoning language, traditions, and spiritual ties to country that define identity more profoundly than any urban convenience could provide. Life is challenging, services are basic, supplies are expensive and infrequent, and the climate is harsh. But the community maintains traditional practices alongside modern necessities. Elders teach younger generations about country, songlines, and cultural knowledge that exists nowhere else. For Indigenous Australians, place isn't just location, it's identity. Juntjunjara residents stay because leaving would mean losing essential parts of themselves. The community has fought for autonomy, self-determination, and the right to maintain their way of life on their own terms. Number 3. Meekatharra, Western Australia. Goldfields town that won't quit. Meekatharra is 765 kilometers northeast of Perth with around 700 residents. It's a gold mining town that survived multiple boom and bust cycles. When gold prices drop, population shrinks. When prices rise, workers return. But a core group of residents have stayed through it all. Why? Because Meekatharra represents resilience. The people here have weathered economic volatility, extreme heat, and isolation. They've built a community that endures regardless of external circumstances. The town has schools, medical facilities, recreational amenities, and a social fabric that supports residents through difficult times. Indigenous and non-Indigenous residents have created a multicultural community where practical cooperation matters more than political correctness. When someone needs help, hands show up. When the town needs improvement, residents organize and execute. Employment is mining, government services, healthcare, and small businesses. It's not diverse, but it's stable enough for people who value community over career progression. Number 3, Meekatharra, Western Australia. Goldfields town that won't quit. Meekatharra is 765 kilometers northeast of Perth with around 700 residents. It's a gold mining town that survived multiple boom and bust cycles. When gold prices drop, population shrinks. When prices rise, workers return. But a core group of residents have stayed through it all. Why? Because Meekatharra represents resilience. The people here have weathered economic volatility, extreme heat, and isolation. They've built a community that endures regardless of external circumstances. The town has schools, medical facilities, recreational amenities, and a social fabric that supports residents through difficult times. Indigenous and non-Indigenous residents have created a multicultural community where practical cooperation matters more than political correctness. When someone needs help, hands show up. When the town needs improvement, residents organize and execute. Employment is mining, government services, healthcare, and small businesses. It's not diverse, but it's stable enough for people who value community over career progression. Number 2, Yuadumu, Northern Territory. Strong Aboriginal culture and extreme remoteness. Yuadumu is 290 kilometers northwest of Alice Springs in Central Australia. Population around 800 people. It's an Aboriginal community with strong cultural identity, artistic heritage, and deep connection to surrounding desert country. Why do residents stay despite harsh conditions and limited services? Because Yuadumu is home in the truest sense. This is where families have lived for generations, where language is spoken daily, where traditional knowledge is practiced and preserved. The community is famous for vibrant art, particularly the Warlookerlang Artists Association, which produces distinctive acrylic paintings recognized internationally. Art provides income, cultural expression, and connection between generations. Life is challenging. Services are basic, distances to larger towns are significant, and social issues affect many remote Indigenous communities. But residents stay because leaving means abandoning culture, family, and identity. The connection to country isn't sentimental, it's fundamental. Number 1, Finca, Northern Territory, the desert town that time forgot, but residents remember. At number 1, we have Finca, also known as Apatula, 230 kilometers south of Alice Springs. Population fluctuates around 200 people. It's predominantly an Aboriginal community sitting in harsh desert country where temperatures exceed 45 degrees regularly. Water is precious, and the landscape looks like another planet. Why do people stay in what many would consider one of Australia's most inhospitable locations? Because Finca represents ultimate autonomy. Residents here live life on their own terms, connected to ancient land and culture, free from urban interference and expectations. The famous Finca Desert Race passes through here annually, bringing brief chaos and welcome revenue. But most of the year, Finca is quiet, isolated, and functioning according to its own rhythms. For Aboriginal residents, this is ancestral country. Cultural obligations, family connections, and spiritual ties keep people here despite obvious hardships. For the handful of non-Indigenous residents, Finca offers escape from everything modern life demands. No performance, no pretense, just survival, community, and honest existence. The lesson from all these remote towns is profound. People don't stay in difficult places because they're unaware of easier alternatives. They stay because they've found something in isolation that cities promise but rarely deliver: genuine community, meaningful purpose, and freedom to live authentically without constant judgment or interference. These aren't people who couldn't make it elsewhere. They're people who made deliberate choices to prioritize relationships over convenience, space over stimulation, and autonomy over amenity. And if you're sitting in traffic right now, stressed about rent, surrounded by strangers, maybe these remote town residents understand something about quality of life that the rest of us forgot. If this made you question where and how you're living, smash that subscribe button. Because sometimes the most remote places teach us the most important lessons about what actually matters.